Today, we are diving deep into the world's oldest living religion, a spiritual tradition that over 1 billion people follow. It's not really a single unified faith, but more like a huge, diverse family of traditions. It's often called Sanatana Dharma, which translates to the eternal tradition. It is just a fascinating, complex, and deeply philosophical way of looking at life. So let's get into it. It's a great question to kick things off with, right? I mean, so many ancient faiths have just faded into the history books, but the one we're exploring today has been going strong for at least 4,000 years. That makes it a living, breathing bridge to our ancient past. And hey, speaking of things you've probably seen, you've definitely come across this figure before. He is one of the most recognizable deities on the entire planet, and I promise by the end of this, you'll know exactly who he is and why he's so important. We'll get to him a little later on. All right, here's our game plan. We're going to start with the ancient roots of this tradition. Then we'll jump into its core beliefs and sacred guides. After that, we'll meet the major gods, and we'll wrap up by taking a look at the origins and the evolution of the caste system. First up, an eternal way of life. Look, to really get Hinduism, you have to appreciate its incredible age. It started taking shape more than 4,000 years ago, blending the culture of the Indus Valley civilization with that of nomadic peoples in the Indian subcontinent. It's so old that the ideas of Hinduism and India are, well, they're completely inseparable. Now, what's really cool is how the names themselves came about. It all starts with the Sanskrit word for the Indus River, Sindhu. So ancient Persians, who often turned S sounds into H's, called the river Hindu. And from there, the people living across that river became the Hindus. The Persians then told the Greeks, who weren't big fans of that H sound, so they dropped it, added their typical Aya at the end, and boom, you get the word India. So how did this ancient tradition actually view the world? Well, that brings us to its core beliefs, the 7 pillars that make up the philosophical bedrock of Hinduism. If you want to really understand the Hindu mindset, which can be anything from devout worship to pure philosophy, you've got to get these concepts. So here they are at a glance. Brahman, the universal soul; Atman, the individual soul; Karma, the law of cause and effect; Moksha, the ultimate goal of liberation; the authority of the sacred texts, the Vedas; a cyclical view of time; and finally, Dharma, which is all about proper behavior. To see how these all fit together, let's zoom in on a few of the really key ideas. First up, Brahman. Okay, this is the big one. Brahman isn't a god in the universe. Brahman is the universe. It's this formless, genderless, single source of all reality. The best way to think about it is like this. Imagine Brahman is the entire ocean. Everything else, you, me, the planet, the stars, we're all just single drops of water from that ocean. We might seem separate for a little while, but ultimately, we are all made of the exact same stuff. And that individual drop of water? Well, that's your Atman, your immortal individual soul. Hindus believe that when a body dies, the Atman keeps going. It moves to a new body in a process we call transmigration, or rebirth. So what decides where you end up next? That's karma. It's pretty straightforward. The sum of your good and bad actions in this life directly shapes the quality of your next one. So if you're just being reborn over and over, what's the point? What's the end goal? It's called moksha, liberation from this endless cycle of rebirth. You achieve moksha when your individual soul, your Atman, finally has that big aha moment and realizes its true nature, that it's actually one with Brahman. This ancient prayer says it all perfectly. It's a plea to move beyond this temporary, unreal world and merge back into that ultimate eternal reality. Okay, so that's the big philosophical picture. But how do you actually live a life that leads you toward that goal of moksha? Well, that brings us to the guides for living well. These are the sacred texts and the life goals that help turn that deep philosophy into real practical action. The absolute foundation are the 4 Vedas, which are believed to have been divinely revealed to ancient sages. They have everything, from hymns and rituals to really deep philosophy. The Rig Veda, for example, talks about truth and reality. The Sama Veda sets hymns to music. But my personal favorite has to be the Atharva Veda. It is full of fascinating stuff, from herbal medicine and tactics for war to charms, spells, and yes, even curses to use against your enemies. Now, beyond the Vedas, there are 2 epic poems that are just central to Hindu culture. The Ramayana tells the amazing story of Prince Rama. Then you have the Mahabharata, which is literally the longest poem ever written, a huge, complex drama that has more betrayal, love, and epic battles than any TV show you've ever seen. But for all their drama, they share one single powerful message. Dharma has to be followed for order to win out. So how does all this apply to your actual life? Well, Hinduism outlines 4 main goals for living well. And get this, you should pursue artha, that's prosperity and a good reputation. And you should enjoy kama, pleasure. But, and this is a big but, both of these have to be guided by the principles of dharma, or proper behavior. Living that kind of balanced life is what ultimately leads you to the final goal, moksha. Okay, so you might be thinking, wait a minute. You said Brahman is the one formless reality. So where do all these gods and goddesses come from? That's a great question. While Brahman is the ultimate reality, Hindus worship thousands of deities, who are all seen as different manifestations or different aspects of that one supreme power. And at the very top of this huge pantheon is the Trimurti. You can think of it as the Hindu Trinity. These are the 3 main gods who are responsible for the cosmic cycle of the universe: creation, preservation, and destruction, which importantly always leads to renewal. First up is Brahma, the creator. Now this is super important. Don't confuse him with Brahman. Remember, Brahma is the creator god, the one who brings the universe into being. Brahman is the universe itself. So Brahma the god has 4 heads that represent the 4 Vedas he created, and his ride is a giant swan. Next up is Vishnu, the preserver. His job is basically to maintain cosmic balance and protect Dharma. Whenever evil really starts to threaten the world, Vishnu actually comes down to earth in different forms, called avatars, to set things right. These avatars include super famous figures like Rama from the Ramayana and Krishna from the Mahabharata. And finally, we have Shiva, the destroyer. But destruction here isn't a bad thing at all. It's a totally necessary act of renewal. Think of it like a cosmic reset button. At the end of each time cycle, he performs a cosmic dance that dissolves the universe, clearing the way for Brahma to create everything all over again. He's got a powerful third eye, and he has 2 sons, the war god Murugan and Ganesha, the remover of obstacles. And yep, you guessed it, that's our elephant guy from the beginning. And that brings us to our final section, and it's a big one, a topic you've probably heard of, the caste system. This is maybe the most controversial and misunderstood part of Hinduism, so we're just going to look at where it came from in the scriptures and how it changed into the rigid social hierarchy it became. This timeline really shows how it evolved. The earliest texts, like the Rig Veda, describe 4 social classes based on a person's function, priests, warriors, merchants, and laborers. The Bhagavad Gita backs this up, saying the system was about a person's qualities and job, not about who their parents were. But then, around the 5th century BC, a text called the Laws of Manu came along and made the whole system rigid and hereditary. Today, while caste discrimination is illegal in India and people mix all the time, the legacy of that system definitely still lingers. This quote right here from the Bhagavad Gita is so important. Lord Krishna himself says the whole point of this system was to organize society based on people's natural talents and the roles they played, their qualities and functions. This really shows that the original idea was way more flexible than the rigid birth-based system it turned into. So, to bring this all home, let's circle back to the single most important concept in Hinduism, Dharma. It means more than just proper behavior. It's the underlying cosmic law that keeps the entire universe in balance. Everything has its own dharma. A lion has a dharma, a river has a dharma, a person has a dharma. And really, the biggest takeaway is this. Following your own personal dharma is what helps maintain harmony and order in the whole universe. And this brings us to one last thought. For a tradition that's thousands of years old, an eternal tradition, the biggest challenge today is adapting to a world that's changing faster than ever. So I'll just leave you with this question to think about. In a world like ours, how does a faith so ancient continue to find its balance?